welcome to the show.
Hi, thank you for having me.
So, I want to talk to you all about living abroad because you see, I guess, the headlines go travel, live abroad, enjoy different cultures, go to leave your hometown, and it's almost like a pressure to go
Mm,
off and do things. And you have lived in different places, you've experienced the highs and the lows of that. Firstly, can you give a little bit of background of where you have lived and why you've moved about? But then also your experience with that, a bit of an honest summary into how you found
okay, that's so interesting. I feel everyone has their own story, so I feel even though you feel like you might feel this pressure of just having to do that, it's absolutely fine to just not want to. Some people might not want to, some people like end up regretting moving in the first place. Some others can never imagine going back after they move. So yeah, in my case, my family is not originally from Italy, but I was born in Italy and I lived there most of my life. So I feel like I blame a lot this for my sense of not belonging. So I feel 100% Italian. I absolutely love the Italian culture and I'll always, share that with the rest of the world, whoever I meet. But like growing up there, I always felt I was always the weird one. I was always told to be too much of international, too much of a dreamer, too much of, every one of my friends knew that I was going to live abroad at some point. So it didn't come as a shock. Like my parents were in shock when I said I'm going to do that there and that there. They were like, okay, sure. You know, so in my case, I feel like I always knew. I remember I was like, what, 10 or 11, and I was speaking English with my friends. And they were like, why are you even speaking English? Why do you need English? And I was like, oh, because I'm going to live abroad. I felt like, 10 years old me knew. So I guess that's partly why. And I've talked with a close friend of mine who's also, whose family is not originally from the place she was born. And she said she felt the same. So we were the weird ones, but we connected exactly because of this. So it's always like the sense of like belong. I think like everyone comes in this world feeling they need to belong somewhere or they would want to. Some people are lucky enough to be born in a place they naturally feel they belong to because either by generations before, all the people of their family belong there, or maybe just because they connect to the place immediately. Some others instead like feel that they have to go on this quest and find their place and their culture and their people. And I feel like right now we are somewhat so privileged to be able to do that. We can just take a plane and most of the world is open to us. So we can, reinvent ourselves, do another job. Before there was much more this culture of, you studied for this, you end up doing this for the rest of your life. There's not this pressure. There was not even the possibility to travel so much by plane or all that. People will get married much, earlier in time. So when you start a family, it's much harder to just pack everything and be like, okay, let's move to another place. So I think like a lot of things change. And we're probably one of the very first generations to be more into this freedom, which comes with a lot of responsibilities, right? Because it's okay, I can be whoever I want to be, wherever I want to be, but then what do I want? So it's really hard. But so for me, that was really like the main reason I ended up moving around is just, okay, where do I belong? Because yeah, I feel I belong a bit here and a bit in Albania. Albania would be my parents' place. But then again, because I belong in both places, then I don't really belong in any. So then like a bit of like school and university and job brought me to different places. So I lived in Israel for a while. I lived in Ireland for a while. I'm going to live in the US for a while, again, for job. So it's just moving around and it's interesting to see how different the word is. So I think like for me, that was really important. I never regret it, taking the choice to just travel because I feel like I've grown so much, I learned so much, and compared to people that like unfortunately or just by choice they decided to not travel that much or not go abroad as a living experience. From one side, it's really hard then to go back and be able to be fully myself with them, even if they were my friends or they still are. But it feels like limiting. So that's why for me, I feel like once you take the step, it's really hard to then go back and feel like it's fine. Like even just with my family, like they realize like I'm not the same one and they cannot keep up with me.
Yeah.
So it's like for them, I'm still the little girl that like took a backpack and just left at some point. And I am that, but I'm also a lot of that other stuff that I developed along the way.
I love how you describe it as a quest to finding where you belong, you know, because it's hard. And I think what you said before, it was almost more simple when we had lack of options, lack of choice, because you knew kind of where you were at. And I think that there's such a lack of connection in the modern world in a way, because everybody they grow up and then they leave, and then you don't really keep up with anyone properly, because also in social media it does give you a really amazing platform to connect with people who you went to school with, who you met like once on holiday in like 2006, who you might know, who you might work with or used to work with, or make friends through social media as well. But I think there's such a ceiling on the depth of friendship unless you're actually like video calling or seeing them in person. But in terms of like social media friendships, there is a bit of a limit on that. So it's interesting then, if you do stay where you are, it can also feel quite limiting, because who else is out there to see? You know, all of the friends who you can go and see and experience and meet. And then it becomes this, I guess, paralysis of what do you do. And one of the pieces of content you put on your social media is like point of view. You're like you've turned 26, and I'm also 26, so I can relate to you. But it's, you want to climb the corporate ladder, but you don't want to burn yourself out. Find the love of your life, but also focus on your passion. Save to buy a house, but also travel while you're still young. Move out of your hometown, but spend more time with your family. But what if you can have it all, just not all at once, and be patient with each season? And I kind of want to break that down a little bit, because a lot of the time we do look at all of the options that we have, which are more than any generation before us have had. We have the most options of what we can do. We can work online, we can work remotely, we can do anything, which almost overwhelms us with choice and makes every decision seem almost unworthy, because there's so many other options that we can have. So it's actually really hard, linking back to where do you belong in terms of so many different parts of your identity, not only where you actually physically are, but in terms of all the little bits as well. It can feel quite overwhelming. So what are your kind of thoughts on that? Like, how do you fit in? How do you find that out? How do you not get overwhelmed and end up doing nothing?
Well, who said you're not going to get overwhelmed? Like, there's definitely going to be hard days, 100%. But I feel like everyone is on their path. Everyone is trying out things. And actually, just a disclaimer on the whole like topic. The video itself that you mentioned, it's not originally mine. So like the idea was someone else's. I wanted to put it out there just for credits, because just to be, honest and transparent. But anyway, that said, it just points out how valid the feelings are, because so many other people are relating to the same feelings. So like no matter the age, like 26 is just indicative, but the mid-20s in general, like there's people studying university and people who have children and getting married, and like there's literally everything. And when you see that everyone is on their path, you stop even comparing. Like there's no even point in just being, oh, I feel like behind, or I feel like I'm doing something that no one ever did before. It's literally everyone is on their path. And it's fine to make mistakes. Like, as you said, like we're very privileged right now to be able to try out like things that don't work out, we start over again. It's really a privilege. And like, you can look at things and you can always find something bad or something good in any situation. You know how like it's whether you see the cup half empty or half full. But and like, to be fair, I also feel like sometimes it's really important to see it half empty, because it gives us the the drive to just change what is not working. Mm-hmm. So you're always gonna shift, one day you're gonna see it that way, one day the other. But like what's important sometimes is just to stop and say, okay, wait, I have a cup with something, like it's filled, at least it has something. The way you see then, like it's up to you, but like there's something there, meaning that like every day you still have an option. Like you wake up, you still have an option. And of course it's overwhelming when you you think, oh, wait, I did not find exactly what I want to, or you thought you wanted something, you try it out and it doesn't work, and you're like, wait, did I make a mistake? It's really overwhelming. But for me, what works is I really trust my feeling. I don't pressure myself into thinking, okay, this is for the rest of my life. No one knows. Like like the future is unpredictable, and thinking that I will know right now, exactly what's going to happen like in 10 years, I have no clue. Like I literally have no clue. I just know what works for me right now, and I'm going to pursue that. And then if it turns out to be the same thing in 5 years, in 10 years, I'm happy. But if it doesn't, like I'm going to be open to change again. And I feel like one thing for sure that this sort of lifestyle gives you is the ability to be so versatile, to just be able to change again, like take a backpack and start over again. And it is tiring. It might be tiring because you're like, oh, what did I build then? If like my circle changes every time, if my doctor changes every time, if my the language I speak changes every time, it's hard, it's confusing, and it's hard, especially in terms of relationships, because we naturally will belong to others. We are, human beings, and we tend to interact with each other, and it's hard to create like strong relationship, either friendships or just like, partner wise. It's really hard to build something up, because if you're always constantly moving, it's hard to keep the same environment. And as you said, at the same time, if you're stuck in a place and everyone else leaves, it's the same. You're still like alone, and you need to start over again. I feel like what happens, or at least in my case, so one of my ex-boyfriends, like we broke up because we were just so opposite on this sphere of life. I wanted to travel the world and explore every place, and he was more into saying where he was for, like where he grew up with all the people he always knew. And I feel like those kind of like people, the people that have that type of personality, tend to stick then with similar people, because your vibe attracts your tribe. And they are all people who were born and raised in the same like in the same little town, and they all like are happy like that, and they want to stick together, and that's their choice. People like me instead tend to then like get along with people of the same type. So like I have international friends, I have friends all over. I am able to travel the world, and I don't even have to find accommodation because I most probably have a friend there. And that's because, while you travel, you connect to people, and you connect to like-minded people. And most probably there are people who as well, like they change the place they were born to live somewhere else. And then this is how you connect. And it's hard as well to keep this friendship up, because if we're living like long distance, how do you keep the friendship? It really has like the same as having a long distance relationship. It's definitely about effort, about trust, about you don't need to talk every day to understand you're there. It's also, we are lucky to be hyper connected right now with social media. So it's about not like taking the advantage of all that, and not being shy. There's nothing wrong if you see a story of your friends that you didn't talk to for years, and just be like, oh, that's so interesting. And you just talk it out. And actually, I met like a lot of people. I was in Vienna just recently. I was there for a few months, and two or more than of my followers just brought me up, and they were, okay, you're in Vienna. I'm from Vienna. Do you want to see the city? I can show you around. And that's how you make friends. And now these people also met each other, so they're also friends. So it's just so beautiful that like you can bring this hyper connection also to real life.
Mm-hmm.
So just be open. I feel like just embrace it.
Yeah, for sure. I think it's a new way, isn't it? It's a new type of socializing, and it's you just kind of have to adapt to that, and it can be really, really great when it's used in that way, and it can really connect us to new people who we never would have met in places that we would never have been to otherwise. And another thing I want to like ask you about is that like fear of missing outness that social media can, when it's not used in that way, it kind of can be a bit more, it can have a bad effect on us. It cannot be as positive. But because you kind of mentioned, you had a breakup based on knowing who you are, knowing what you want to do, and knowing that it didn't align with the person who you were with, that kind of screams to me that you actually know your identity. You know your authentic self and what you want to do and what you want to achieve, which I think maybe like fear of missing out would perhaps lie on the other side of not knowing perhaps so much who you are, because you wouldn't, if you didn't know who you were, you probably would be affected by not doing the things that you might not even want to do, because if you did want to do
Yeah,
them, you might
100%. Yeah.
So what's your kind of thoughts on the social media effect of that way, and how was that confidence, I guess, to actually make that decision of, I'm actually going to leave this relationship because it doesn't actually align with the person I want to be? Like, that's quite a hard decision to make. You really got to know yourself.
Oh, yeah. So one thing for sure is like when you are alone outside there, like, in the world, it's like you need to grow up, you need to know yourself, you need to build yourself. So in that sense, you develop yourself in a way that you become much more aware of your limits, but also of your, strengths, and you you're less willing to compromise just for the sake of a comfort zone. So in that sense, I feel like the fact that I chose to live this way also made me the person I am. So that's why I'm absolutely happy and proud about this. Like when you're sure of who you are and like at least what's your next step, or just what you don't want, it's definitely easier to take decisions and stick to them. At the same time, we're all humans, we are exposed to so many inputs, and it's hard to be, I want this, but I also want that. So how do you choose and how do you stick to that? And I'm definitely not so good at that. Because I like 1 million things. And even just in terms of friendships, I was saying, I see a story and I see my friends on the other side of the world meeting each other. And I'm like, why? Why am I not there? Why am I here? But at the same time, here is a good place, like I'm having a different type of fun that they're not having. So everyone at the end of the day, it's like experiencing some FOMO. It's really about like kind of reminding yourself of where you are, and trying to appreciate here while knowing that you could be somewhere else. It's like you can get there, you might get there, you will get there, but enjoy here. Like enjoy here right now.
Yeah, you're like managing FOMO rather than not allowing yourself to feel the emotions. Because
Exactly.
when you kind of submerge your emotions, there's only so much you can get away with, and then suddenly it all spills over the top, and you've got to deal with it all at once. But yeah, it's the management of that and allowing yourself to kind of feel like that's normal. Because I think friendships in your 20s, and then I imagine like beyond, it even gets more complicated when you go into your 30s and 40s, when people have families and more
Ooh,
responsibilities and
yeah.
everything. Friendships change. Like, they're very different to when you were at school and you saw the same group of people every day, who might not be completely aligned with who you want to be or your interests or anything like that. But you see them every day, you interact with them every day, and suddenly then you kind of go from university into the big world, and then it's very different. Everybody spreads out a lot, and adult friendships, they're different. Trying to navigate that, it feels quite strange, I guess, how normal some things are. Like, it's normal not to speak to people for a long time and then see them and then nothing's changed. It's interesting how, yeah, we don't really talk about it so much. How the normalities of that
That is so true. Like in order, like right now, because of the, just how spread around the world we are, or even just, people in the same city, they just might have different interests now, or just have different lifestyle, and they used to study every day together, but now they have different jobs, so they see each other less often for natural reasons. It's hard to keep up, and you need to put effort. You need to be willing to do so. You need to pick up the phone and make that call if you need to, if you want to. And naturally, then, if one of the two sides stops doing that, you're going to lose some people. Not necessarily because something bad happens. Sometimes you just grow apart. I feel that happens though, even in cases when you don't have to be living far away. It happens naturally even with people living in the same city. Like you just at some point you just grow up and you develop yourself to be something different than what you were when you were like younger. And it's okay to be accepting that we're just not getting along anymore as we used to, and it's fine, because people might have different interests. Like I've changed so many friends along the years, and some of them I happen to have like lost them because of bad things, but most of the time it was just because we grew apart. especially traveling and being exposed to so many different cultures and inputs, I naturally then tend to bond with the people that I feel closer to in that specific time. And then people who cannot keep up with that, or I wasn't very good at sharing that side of me with them, I naturally like lost. And no one is mad about it. It's sad. Yes, it is. And we are experiencing this new way of living life in a very unique and once in a lifetime experience, because we don't have, a manual of extraction coming from our parents. Our parents didn't have to do that because most of them grew up in the same environment. But in my case, I feel like I did have that because my family doesn't have the same friendship as they did when they grew up, because they had to escape the place they were from. So they all spread around, and somehow they kept being connected. That's actually so funny. I spent one summer in Canada I was there for 3 months, and that was the best friend of my mom. They were in university together, and somehow, with no internet, no nothing, they kept being connected. And I ended up being in this place for like 3 months out of a friendship. So this is testimony. I feel like I grew up in this environment, so I learned kind of even passively that if you want to, friendship can last. You can make it work even from distance, even from miles apart. It's all about, at the end, how close you are, and that has nothing to do with this like physical distance. Is more about values and the person you are, and if you still trust each other and can share it, can share who you are with each other. And I feel that's the most important thing, and that's what I learned as well. I learned to let go a lot of friendships that I felt like I was just connected to because we were living in the same environment, not because we're actually connected as people. Mm-hmm. So I think that's something to be thinking about more, to be like, okay, who do I want to be friend with? And because I feel like there's a lot of the pressure of having friends. You need to have 1 million friends because then you're popular, because then this and that. But honestly, you just need like some good friends and nothing more. You need people who you can rely on, people who love you for who you are and who you can be yourself with. And if you're not allowed to do that, then you're not your friends anyway. So
yeah, very true. Yeah, it's interesting because there's I guess friendships of convenience. So they classically would be work colleagues, maybe people who you live nearby, people who you went to school with and still are very familiar with, but perhaps don't actually enjoy their company so much anymore. And also friendships of convenience. Like, there's absolutely nothing wrong with them. They can be fantastic. They can be really good, but they're probably not going to be long term. And they're a different type of friendship to ones, I guess, the close ones that you need around you. But I also think that friendship has changed so much because we've literally been talking about how you can move anywhere, you can do anything. A lot, like, life is part of so many different seasons, which perhaps I think has also been quite new, because previously you'd have the season of school, maybe the season of university, but even then that's quite a recent addition to modern generations. Mm-hmm. And then you'd probably go into a job, probably work there pretty much your whole career. You might have maybe 1 or 2 job changes, but that would probably be less likely. Then you'd have got married, you'd have had your kids, and you'd have been around pretty much the same people.
Yeah.
Whereas now it is very different, because I think we look back to like the generation of like Friends, the TV show, and like everybody who has watched that, you kind of think, oh my goodness, like I don't think, like, it's quite rare for friendships like that to still exist. People who live close enough to each other that they can maintain those friendships, that there's that many people in the group, that there's, it's one of those things that it's changed so much that actually it's not a failure not to have that. And it might be, there's seasons of friendship as well, just as you said then. But I think our perception of friendships and expectations of friendships can sometimes lead ourselves to feeling like we've fallen short, when actually it's just the whole environment has changed.
Yeah, no, I totally agree with that, honestly. Like, I don't feel like that exists anymore. If it does, it's just like a much smaller reality. And it was definitely the case from previous generations, but right now it's really about prioritizing yourself, in meaning that the quest of finding who you are and
The
everything.
quest.
Yeah, I think so. It's about, okay, I need to find out who I am and everything. And like all those changes obviously naturally make you become more picky with friendships as well, like because you don't really make as many friends out of convenience. So yeah, definitely.
But it's not always good. I think we could all do with a dose of the friendship from the Friends, the TV show. But sadly, it's just quite hard to find because I think perhaps, like, hear me out here, but because we can do anything and find out who we are and perhaps have that selfishness that we've never really been able to indulge before, it's really limited the depth of friendships that we can develop as easily. I don't think any of it's obsolete. I don't think any of it's extinct, but I just think it's way more difficult to find.
um I feel like I'm not sure, honestly, if it's because of the change of environment that it's hard to find. I feel like in general, it's hard to find. It's about luck. It's about, yeah, it's about a lot of factors. Finding someone you actually connect with at a deep level.
And do you think that's more difficult than before?
I think it's the same.
Yeah.
I think it was just easier to stick with the same people, even if you weren't as connected before, because you didn't have the choice to just change at some point. Whereas right now you have the choice. It might seem more difficult, but if I think about it, like I don't know if even the previous generation might have like so many friends they were so connected with, like so deep friendship. Talking about experience now, I feel like a lot of people are not really genuine in their friendships. They tend to shape themselves based on the person they're with, so they can be friends. So, for example, I know you don't like ice cream, just stupid example, and then I would never talk about ice cream with you. But maybe I'm really fond of ice cream, and then it's just I'm limiting who I am then to fit in your space. And it happens quite naturally then in specific environments like school, university, because like you have to stick together. Now, I don't know how the situation is in Scotland, but in Italy, all like the 5 years of high school, you have to stick with the same people. You don't change class. So you need to like them. Whether you like them or not, you need to like them and you need to be liked. So you tend to do that. And then at some point you're free and you're able to be who you are, especially if you do something like me when you just travel around and you're like, no one judges you because like you're new every time. So you don't have a past in a sense, and you really recreate yourself and you take off the pressure of being liked so much. And in that sense, you become more genuine in your friendships because you can be fully yourself. Me, I've tend to, well, of course, I took a bit of time to shape who I am into the person I was actually proud of being, because and especially in the high school age like period, you had to discover yourself first in order to be yourself. But once that step is done and you're kind of shaped, sense, I'm not saying like people cannot change, it can improve and develop at any stage, but I'm just saying like that's probably the period, like the teenage period, when you really find yourself and start building on that. Since that moment, I really started being genuine with the people, and I'd rather you not like me than having to be liked for someone that I'm not. So I feel like in that sense, once you start being the most true to yourself, you then start building those deep relationships, whatever they are, like even just like with a partner, but also with friendships, because then people are going to know for who you are, and based on that they're going to stick or not. And sometimes it's better they don't stick, because then it's like you're not going to work. So
yeah, exactly. And sometimes it's when you look back in hindsight, you think, okay, I'm glad that didn't work, even if it does hurt at the time. But I think a lot of it does come with age. When you're 15, you're probably not going to be as confident to fall out with the people who you're at school with or whatever in your class, as you say. But as you grow up, you can figure out who you are a bit more, and maybe have a bit more choice with that. And then with the whole kind of, I guess, figuring out who you are and like even leading into mental health and that side of it, the environment that you're in vastly dictates that. It has a huge bearing on that. And you moved from a very hot country to a very cold country, which is not insignificant because it changes, I guess, the whole culture. The whole culture of say Italy, where you're from, I would say, you know, it's a lot more outside. And say, I'm guessing it was Ireland you were referring to, and moving to the cool country it's very different, because suddenly you're not going to eat outside. Maybe you will in summer, but certainly not any other time of the year. You know, you're not going to be able to spend as much time sitting at the beach or whatever unless you're all wrapped up. It's very different. How was that experience of hot country to cold country in terms of culture, but also just the environment around you? How did you find that?
That was a shock, to be honest. And everyone was like, "Didn't you check that before, before going?" No, and that is because I'm like that. I just, I feel like it's a good idea. I go with that. I don't really overthink too much. I don't overthink too much with important things. And for stupid thing, I overthink as much as I want. But yeah, so that was a big shock, and I did not take that into account. Changing cold with like hot with cold. I feel like the biggest shock was the lack of sun, more than cold and hot. Like, you can always cover yourself, change the way you dress, but like not seeing the sun for so long, it was just a shock for me. And it just feels like it's scientifically proven you need that vitamin, especially if your skin is used to that. So that was the first one, and then the second one was like the not changing of season. So back in Italy, I would have a very sharp, it's not like I don't have winter, but I do have a sharp difference between winter and summer. So even like as I said, like because the environment affects you, the person that I am, like my traits in summer would be more outgoing and more fun vibes and just like happier in a sense, just more socially active. And then in winter, I would slow down. And this is like a pace that just made my life balanced. Back in Ireland, everything was just so static because there was no summer for me. It was always winter. Obviously, colder winter, warmer winter, but still winter. Because again, like everything was inside, and for me, it was inside time is the winter time, so I can recharge my social battery, and then like in summer.
The Italian saying, there is no summer in Ireland, there is just warmer winter, colder winter. That's actually quite an iconic quote.
Yeah, that's anyway from my perspective. But yeah, and then for me was okay when it's the time to go outside, because I can survive a winter inside, but then when's the time to be socially active? And I didn't, everything was still inside. Okay, you go to pubs or clubs, but still everything is inside. And it was a shock because for me back in my hometown, I would just go for a walk. I didn't have to do something with my friends. We can just go outside and we'll figure out. And it's crazy because then Ireland is full of landscapes and beautiful green grasses and all parks. But because it rains so much, it's hard to be outside all the time. Of course, I know there are people who do that. That's not my cup of tea, honestly. And it affects your motivation, your mood, unless you're used to that, I guess. I don't know. But like in my case, it was really hard some days to just wake up and be like, oh, I'm happy to go to work. Even though I was doing something that I loved, it was still hard. And I totally underestimated that. And I know who I am. And I know I'm someone that likes to go out, likes to hang out with friends. And I realized how different I was reacting to even like people ask me to go out back in Ireland. I was like, no, I don't feel like doing it. I really just I lost motivation to be socially active because I was in my winter. So yeah, I feel like it does affect you so much. I know there are people that are like, oh no, the environment does affect you because at the end of the day, it's you, and you can make up you can make the effort and you will go out, and it's true, you can do that, but it doesn't mean you're going to enjoy as much. And just for the reckon, I feel like we are so influenced just by the fact we are born in a specific period and in a specific environment, like just a specific country, and all that really affects it just by birth, or in a specific family. Just all those things are factors that we don't even choose. Like we don't even choose to be born. So of course we're affected by stuff that we don't have control over, whether we might accept that or realize it or not. I'm also obviously very confident that we choose our own destiny and we can work towards that. We can shape our future, our life 100%, but there's always a limited amount of power that we have. Like, at the end of the day, we are born in this shape, in this form, and that limits us somehow, or gives us some strength. So I am a strong believer that the environment affects you. It doesn't mean that like you have to be just, giving up because, oh, well, I was born like this and bye. But if you see that if it's not working, if you see that you're not happy, if you see like you don't feel that's you, because that was happening to me. I looked myself in the mirror every morning. I was like, Anna, this is not you. And that was shocking for me. That was, okay, I need to leave this place. And that's why I left. And I'm like, I hate when I say this because then everyone is like, oh, you hate Ireland. I love the people there. I feel like it's a beautiful country. It was just not my place. And in a sense, it was such a big lesson because before this, I felt, oh, I've traveled so much. I can live literally in every place. No, there's places that are for you, there are places that are not for you, and that's totally fine. Sometimes we stick to places because it gives us comfort, because, I don't know, let's say a job, it gives us money, a relationship, it gives us the possibility to share moments with someone else. But sometimes we know that's not what's for us. It's just not something that makes us us, but we still stick to that. Just know that if it's not you, you can change that because you're going to be affected by that. And, there's this saying, this is like, the longer you stay in the wrong train, the more expensive the way back is going to be. If you just don't want to get stuck in this loop, take the chance and leave. I left without having a plan. I still don't know exactly where I'm going to be next month, for example. So I just took it because I knew that was not the environment for me, that was affecting me too much. And I feel even though the first step doesn't take you where you want to be, it still takes you out of where you don't want to be. And that's, sometimes that's enough. Sometimes knowing what you don't want, it's still knowing something, because people are like, oh, but I don't know what I want. Well, if you know what you don't want, it's still good enough.
And I think also the kindness element to ourselves, of speaking kindly to ourselves, allowing ourselves to make mistakes, and seeing how you're actually feeling about the environment that you're in, the friendships that you're in, the relationships that you're in, and actually listening to those signs, because also you're the only one who can really tell what's going on in your head, and you need to look out for yourself. And I'm not really meaning this in like being such a fully self-centered person or whatever. I think there's a definite balance, but you also need to be like your number one fan and look out for, I guess, your best interests. And I don't particularly think that, saying, what serves me best, I don't think that's applicable to every situation, because I think that you can miss out on things by that. And also a huge part of life is being selfless and looking out for others, looking out for our friends and colleagues. But you do need to figure out, hold on, is this a pattern that I'm really spiraling down into someone who I'm actually not? Am I being inspired? Am I happy? Am I waking up in the morning with a sense of dread and doom about the day in front of me? If it's unusual, like, every so often you will, well, that's probably a one-off. If it's a pattern, that's when you have to take a step back, I think, and go, hold on, like, this isn't me. And if maybe it is you, maybe you say this is me, we'll think, well, who do I actually want to be? And take steps towards that. Find friendship groups of people who would be like that. Say you want to get into a sport, but you've got no friends who do that sport. If you go to a club that does that sport, there will be people there who does that sport, so that you can actually make friends with like-minded people in that way. So it is a case of being kind to yourself, but also helping yourself. So it's a bit of a double-edged thing. You got to listen to yourself, but then you actually got to do things as well to help the situation that you're in, because no one else is going to. No one else is going to ride in a white horse and scoop you up and drop you off at the perfect destination. And I did like that analogy of, if you're on the wrong train, if you stay on it too long, it's just going to be more expensive to get back. Because it's true. There's very few things that aren't reversible. But if you're heading in the wrong direction, it's going to be a lot more work if you just keep going in the wrong direction, because at some point you're probably going to want to turn back and right the direction that you want to go in.
And I love how you said, like, speaking to yourself, because really I feel like no one really stops and talk to themselves anymore. They're like, wait, do I like what I'm doing? Sometimes we just do stuff because we're used to do or because we have to, but honestly, we never stop and say, wait, am I actually enjoying what I'm doing? What am I doing? I'm satisfied with it? It has to be so piled up, the bad feeling, to arrive to the point that you stop and are like, oh, wait, how did I even end up in this place? We don't really question our choices so much anymore, or we just, okay, I understand, like, you might have bad days and the days don't make a bad life, but at the same time, sometimes you're aware, but you still like keep brushing it under the rug because it's uncomfortable to sit with yourself and just make these questions and answer them. And there's a lot of people that I know that are like, I don't want to start therapy because it would mean taking responsibility for everything that I know I'm doing wrong, but I don't want to face that. So yeah, it's about being kind to yourself and kind of helping yourself out. But the first step is talking to yourself, is asking those questions, just as you would with your friends. Are you happy with what you're doing? Are you satisfied? Is this what you actually wanted? And it's fine to say no, because sometimes, especially if I'm talking to myself right now, sometimes I want to do something, I end up doing it, and I realize that that's not what I wanted. It's fine to be okay, but that there was a time when you wanted this, didn't work out. It's fine to admit you don't want it anymore. It's absolutely fine. So just be constantly asking, though, just to make sure you're always, if not happy, in peace.
Yeah. I don't think that life is about torturing ourselves because we said we were going to do something and we're going to do it, because imagine it quitting or imagine changing direction and all of these things. And there's a balance for lots of bits. It's not that you should flit about, and I don't think if you flit about and try lots of different things and end up not doing anything and have no direction, like, that's not going to make you happier. However, it is just listening to yourself. And I think, as you said, do I like what I'm doing? Do I like myself? Like, do I like the person I am? Do I like how I'm interacting with people, the things that I'm saying, the things like how I'm acting, that I'm doing, how I'm spending my time? It is just that self-analysis, I think, of that, who you are, the person you're going to be. And it doesn't have to be like this big gushy, Dear Diary thing. It can just be sitting down and thinking, hold on, like, what's going on? A bit of a self-analysis, I think, is always helpful. And then for, I guess, finding out who you are and perhaps, where you want to go or what you want to do, or perhaps, what makes you passionate in life. Like, what's a few good pointers of how to do that, of how people can maybe navigate that? What from your experience would you say to someone who's trying to do that?
Oh, wait. I don't know whether like you find your passion or your passion finds you in a way. Like, I don't know if you're born with it and you just like, you always know, or you have to actively find it. Because in my case, the things I'm passionate about have always been with me in a sense. So I don't remember a time when I had to search for that. But sometimes you end up doing things for the first time and you realize you actually like them. So just be open to try things, because you never know. And sometimes it's an instant no, and it's a no, and it's fine. Sometimes it's that you might be interested in just something absolute, like you would have never thought of doing. Something, though, that I might say is I've created this boundary between passion and job. So I'd like my passion to keep being something that fuels me in a sense, and it's not something that I have to depend on. I can do when I want with no pressure on the outcome, no feeling judged because of others' opinion, or because I need to sell that, or because my income and my life depends on that. At the same time, obviously, like, I absolutely think that you should love or like at least what you do for a living, because otherwise it becomes unbearable. But I'm not sure if I'm all that supportive of make your passion your job, or your live out of your passion, because I feel like that loses what passion is. Like, it's just the meaning of just doing it for the sake of doing it. Whereas, like, I feel like it's safe to have it more as a hobby, just something you do to recharge your soul, to have space for yourself with no pressure on the outcome, or how often you do it, or because then it becomes a job. Just it becomes so stressful, and passion is not, like, shouldn't be a list, like something of this sort. And for me, that's what it is. Like, it's something that I do when I feel like doing it. And I don't feel like I'm putting time or effort into it because it's so natural. A lot of my passions I didn't even share with a lot of people because it's my safe space. I keep it for myself. And I don't know whether this works for everyone. I'm aware that a lot of people that instead want to live out of their passion, and if that's what they want, then okay, that works for them. But if I had to give my advice, it would be it. It would be just find something that makes your soul sparkle, and don't feel like you need to share it necessarily. Like, keep it for yourself if you feel that works for you. But I'm sure that everyone has a passion. Everyone has something that sparkles their soul. It just like makes them happy. So whether people find that or not, I'm sure there is. In case they didn't, just like first find it and then keep doing it, because it saves you. Like, a lot of times I felt I was in a very bad place, and just keep doing it, what I love doing, just saved me, because it's something that like you can always have with yourself.
Protect your passion, because it can be quite difficult to find it. I think a lot of people, if you ask them what their passion was, they'd give you a bit of a blank look, and then they'd get a bit startled and think, oh golly, what am I going to say? But or some people, like as you say yourself, you're kind of born with it. You know exactly what your passion is. I think there's a lot of people in the middle. But if you find something that you're passionate about, there is that inclination to think, gosh, like I wonder if I can make this into a job and everything like that. But then perhaps it doesn't become the passion. It becomes obligation, and you lose that element that you really loved about it, because you have that freedom about it, you have the enjoyment about it. So yeah, it's an interesting point to protect your passion, because you need to have some downtime. I think not everything's all about work, because when you maybe make everything about work, then you don't have that time to actually check in with yourself, and then you go in a bit of a spiral in the other direction. So yeah, it's definitely an interesting point.
Passion is something that just makes you happy. It doesn't, like, you don't have to be good at that,
Yeah.
So some people might think, oh, if I'm not good at this, like, it cannot be my passion. I was like, no, it can be. You can still not be good at that, but
yeah, absolutely. Well, Anna, thanks so much for coming on and chatting. I feel like we covered a lot of topics there. We've gone friendship, living abroad, environment, passions, probably some other things in there as well. So yeah, definitely covered a lot of things. So thanks so much for
just
chatting with us.
the struggle of being in your mid-20s and figuring out life.
Exactly. We're here with you. We hear you. So
thank you so much for having me. It was so fun, and yeah, I love to chat with you.